It's certainly a morbid subject to discuss, but we've all likely talked to our friends about how we want to go out. No doubt for a lot of people, dying quietly in their sleep would seem like a good option, a kind of painless, non-messy exit, perhaps involving one last dream. Nobody wants to leave this planet slowly, wasting away in pain, or maybe even losing their minds. And while it might be fast, it's likely no one would like to go out in an extremely violent way. Then there's the ironic death, and there's plenty of those. We might recall the man in the US in the 80s who avoided the electric chair after appeal, then accidentally electrocuted himself in his cell and died. With that in mind, welcome to this episode of the Infographics Show, the strangest ways people have died. 13. The irony of dying while keeping fit. We'll give you just one famous example of a victim of irony, and that is the case of the former American jogging guru Jim Fixx. He wrote The Complete Book of Running in 1977, and it became a bestseller. In fact, he's said to be one of the main people that started what was called America's fitness revolution. Fixx had once been overweight and also a heavy smoker, but then he started his exercise regime, sold his books, and told the American people that running was the secret to having a long life and good health. He died of a heart attack while running when he was just 52 years old. Okay, so that's perhaps not so strange, and will get stranger, but we just wanted to give you an example of death by irony. 12. Death by clothing. You've all heard news media write stories about what it calls draconian laws or rules. This just usually means out-of-date laws or laws that seem way too strict or even brutal. We get this adjective from a Greek lawmaker called Draco. In Athens in the 7th century BC, this man created laws that were said to be unfair, or at least unfair if you were not part of the wealthy group of people. His harsh legal code could mean cruel punishments for even petty crimes. Nonetheless, it said he was popular at the time with the crowds, but in those days, the public did seem to enjoy watching blood being spilled. It said during one appearance in the Aeginetan Theater, the crowd wanted to show their adoration, so they threw their hats, cloaks, and shirts at him. But they went overboard, and it said Draco suffocated under the avalanche of clothing from his admirers. We should say that this is an old story passed down, so one might question how it actually happened. Maybe they meant to kill him, but we'll never know what happened that fateful day. 11. Death by proving that something is safe. You may have heard about this one as it's popped up in various TV series from time to time. The story is of a Canadian lawyer called Gary Hoy. On July 9, 1993, he was taking people on a tour of the Toronto Dominion Centre, a building of many floors with a lot of glass windows. He wanted to demonstrate to the people just how strong the windows were, as rightly some folks were concerned about such a high glass-fronted building. To do this, he did something he'd done before and threw himself at a glass window to show that the glass was very strong. He was right that the glass didn't smash, but on this occasion, the window popped out of its frame and Hoy fell a long way to his death. An engineer later told the Canadian media, "I don't know of any building code in the world that would allow a 160-pound man to run up against a glass and withstand it." That might have been some shock for the bystanders. 10. Same but different. This is another story of a lawyer trying to prove a point to people and in doing so, killed himself. The man was an American lawyer called Clement Vallandigham, and in 1871 he was representing a client that was accused of murder. The lawyer was trying to prove that the victim wasn't murdered but had accidentally killed himself. He tried to show how this might have happened and accidentally shot himself. He died, but his client got off the murder charge. 9. Death by beard. A tourism website in Austria tells us that people can visit the epitaph of a man called Hans Steininger. He was a mayor of Braunau in the 16th century and was well known for having a really long beard. We're told it was so long that if not tied, it would trail on the floor. One day, the poor guy was walking down the street and he tripped on his own beard, broke his neck, and died. To this day, his beard is kept in the local museum. 8. Death by banana. Slipping on a banana skin is perhaps the best known gag joke, and of course it doesn't happen very often. But searching online, we can find one death certificate from 1927 that did indeed blame a banana skin for the death of a man. The 74-year-old slipped and died in Tennessee. 7. Death by piano. If people do actually die from slipping on banana skins, do they also die by a piano falling on their heads? Well, someone actually investigated this, and that writer found at least one incident when a piano being pulled up a building had come crashing down on a person below. The website Straight Dope writes, in 1931 a piano was being hoisted up to a second-story window when a cornice broke free from the building, falling and killing a mover below. But perhaps the most famous piano death out there was that that of a strip club bouncer called Jimmy Ferrozzo. In 1983, at a club in San Francisco, he and his girlfriend had been making love on a piano that was connected to a hoist so it could be lowered down for performances and raised when it wasn't being used. This time the piano was down on the floor, but during the act of passion, one of the two accidentally hit the switch and the piano was pulled up. Jimmy was consequently crushed against the ceiling, but we are told his lover survived the incident. 6. Killed by a bird. We can actually find a few instances of people being killed by birds, but this one has to be the strangest and also involves a fair bit of karma. In 2011, a 35-year-old California resident called Jose Luis Ochoa was stabbed to death by a bird. The BBC writes that the man had been at an illegal cockfight and had taken with him a cock that had sharp spurs on its legs, which were more like little knives. The bird apparently turned on its owner and he suffered what the coroner called a sharp force injury. A police spokesperson told the media, "I have never seen this type of an incident." No kidding. 5. Killing your son. The snake. In 2013, a Japanese man called Takuya Nagaya had apparently been acting a bit weird at his parents' apartment in Okazaki City. He'd been slithering around like a snake. Of course, his father came to the rational conclusion that his son had been possessed by some kind of snake demon. He then did the next rational thing and took matters into his own hands. Well, we should say head and teeth. Reports tell us his son died from injuries sustained while the father was trying to get the snake out of him by biting and headbutting him. You can only imagine what the scene must have looked like. 4. A cow through the roof. The BBC reported in 2013 that a Brazilian man was killed in his bed when a cow came crashing down through his roof. Somehow the rather large animal got into his asbestos roof and fell right through it. Apparently this wasn't the first time a cow had fallen through a roof in this rural area. The 45-year-old died from internal bleeding. 3. Death by slug. Many of us might have done some silly things just because we were dared to do it, or we wanted to win some money or just show off. This goes wrong all the time, and you can find endless video clips of Darwin Award types of stunts online. In November 2018, the world's media reported the death of an Australian man called Sam Ballard, who had died aged 28. 8 years prior to his death, the skilled rugby player had been at a party with friends in Sydney. No doubt quite a bit of alcohol had been consumed, and during the party, a slug turned up on the scene. Ballard's friends, writes The Independent, dared him to eat the slug. That he did, but as a result, he became very sick. He was taken to a hospital, and it was found later that he had been infected by a parasite known as rat lungworm. This ended up paralyzing the young man and was the reason he died some years later. 2. Death by cockroach. You shouldn't eat slugs, and you also probably shouldn't eat cockroaches. The BBC tells us that in 2012, a man from Florida by the name of Edward Archbold had entered himself into a live cockroach eating competition. He had done well, devouring dozens of the creatures, but it also killed him. The coroner ruled that his death was caused by asphyxia due to choking and aspiration of gastric contents. In short, he had choked on cockroach body parts. 1. The body of Christ. We know that some Christians will take into their mouths something that symbolizes the body of Christ, but one Canadian man took this a step further in 1987. According to the Toronto Globe and Mail, a man called Franco Brune had been taken in by police and left in the cells. It turns out that in the cell, the man had made use of a small Gideon's Bible by swallowing it. He choked to death on it. News reports tell us that for this mentally unwell man, the swallowing of the Bible to him was some form of symbolism or allegory, as though he was trying to purge himself of the devil by consuming religion. What's the strangest death you've heard about? Tell us in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other show, What If Hitler Had Won? Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.